this is the digital port of Twilight Struggle. We are going to create a game. We will play as the Soviets. It's a little easier to play as the Soviets in early war, so getting an early victory out is good with the Soviets. Okay, so this is what we see as we're playing Twilight Struggle. Up here are just card number information for the players. This is our space race, which we'll talk about during turn 1 when we space race this card. This shows us our score. The score for Twilight Struggle is, the score track is like a tug of war. So if the Soviet Union scored 4 points, from where it stands right now, it would be 4 Soviet Union. If the United States then scored 2 points, the score would be 2 Soviet Union. So it sort of pushes back and forth between the maximum amount of points for either superpower, which is 20. So it goes from 20 America to 20 Soviet Union. And we'll see that in effect. Now right here, this is telling us where we are in the game. So we've talked, the first win condition for the game is if one of these superpowers reaches 20 on either end of the score track. So if the Soviets get the score up to 20 Soviet, the Americans get the score up to 20 American, the game is over right then. That superpower wins. The second way the game can end is through the natural order, through the turn track. We will have a maximum of 10 turns during the course of the game. If we get to the end of turn 10 without someone having won through an alternate method, we would score each region, and whoever has the influence at that point would win the game. So let's look a little bit at the turns themselves. The first 3 turns are considered early war, the next 4 mid-war, and the last 3 late war. So in early war, you'll see we have 6 action rounds. That's these. Each turn, 1, 2, or 3, will start with a headline phase, and then we'll alternate first round, second round, third round. Take turns playing our cards. Now, it's important to note, if we look at each turn, you'll see that the red row is always on top. That is because the Soviets will always take their action turn before the Americans. And you'll also notice that from, turn 4 on, there are 7 action rounds. So in early war, there's only 6, but from here on out, there's 7. You might notice this little guy here. We'll discuss this further with the space race, but it's possible to unlock an 8th action round through victory in the space race. Also on the screen, it'll tell us how many cards are in the draw deck and how many cards have been discarded and removed. Now, this is important because in the first 3 turns, we're going to be using the early war deck. In between turns 3 and 4, we will take the mid-war deck, shuffle it with what is left in the draw pile of early war, and then we'll work from there. Same thing will happen between turns 7 and 8. The late war cards will be mixed with whatever is making our draw pile. If at any point the draw pile is empty, we shuffle up the discard and work through those same cards again. So let's talk a little bit about the regions themselves. We take a look at Europe up here. There's a lot of information given to us here. I'm trying to include Canada in the shot. Okay, so these color schemes of chits, white with a red number, red with a yellow number, those signify Soviet influence in a country, and the blues signify American. This number in the upper right hand, let's take a little look at East Germany here. Oops, a doodle. In the upper right hand corner, this number is the stability number. In order for a superpower to be considered to have controlling influence in a country, its influence needs to be more than the opposing superpower's level of influence by this number. So my influence exceeds, that's the word I was just trying to think of. My influence must always exceed, not be equal to, but exceed the American influence in a country by this number. So we look at Finland. The stability number is 4. I have 1, so I exceed American influence in Finland, but not by 4. So I don't have controlling influence. I have influence, but not controlling influence. Whereas here, my influence is 3, and that's 3 more than the Americans have. So I meet the stability number. Over here in Britain, same situation, just with the Americans, and in Canada, similar to my situation in Finland. Now, what we're going to do is try to have controlling influence in as many countries as we can in a region to get points. To basically have our ideology sweep across the globe. So, how do we do this? Well, let's take a little look at Europe here. You know what? We're not going to look at Europe. We'll come back to Europe, and you'll see why in a minute. Let's start with Asia. So, Asia, similar situation, right? I have controlling influence in North Korea. There's a slight American presence in South Korea, Japan, and the Philippines, and a prominent American influence in Australia. So, when we're scoring, we get 1 point for each battleground country that we have controlling influence in. What's a battleground country? It's a really good question, and something I didn't explain in Europe. These boxes that have red tops are battleground countries. It means they're slightly more significant, and as a result, there's the game has created an artificial way to inspire conflict and interaction in these countries to try to more accurately simulate, right, the Cold War. So if these are the cards in your hand, I don't have a scoring card right now, so I can't show you as an example. I could, as an action round, or as a headlining phase round, I could, as a card, play a scoring card. If I played the Asia scoring card, then we would each get 1 point for each battleground country we control. So I would get 1 point, but they don't control either of these, and Australia is not a battleground country, so they would get no points for that. Then we score points based on the degree to which our presence exceeds the other person's. So the lowest tier of that is just presence. Do you have controlling influence in one country in this region? Mine would be yes, because I have North Korea, and Australia's would be yes, because they have Australia. So we both have presence, which is this. The next tier, domination, means you control more. There's 2 criteria you have to meet for this. You control more total countries in the region than the other player, and you control more battleground countries than the other person. So let's take a look at what we've got here. The USSR controls 1 country, and it's a battleground. The United States controls 1 country, but no battlegrounds. So using those 2 criteria, I do not have domination because I do not control more countries total than the other person. But I would get domination. If that were true, I would also need to say that I control more battleground countries. But you have to successfully accommodate both of those conditions, which I don't. So control is if you have controlling influence over all of the battleground countries in the region. If you do, great, you have control. So we would both score for presence here because we both have controlling influence over 1 country. Neither of us has domination. I would get a point because I control 1 battleground country, North Korea, right? Australia isn't a battleground country, so it doesn't give you that extra point. Now, the last way that you can score points is if you control a country that is considered adjacent to the opposing superpower. So for the Soviets, that's Finland, Poland, Romania, Afghanistan, and North Korea. If the United States controlled either of these two for Asia scoring, they would get a point. For America, it's Japan, Canada, Cuba, and Mexico. So if I controlled, in the case of Asia scoring, just Japan, if I controlled Japan, then I would get an extra point. But neither of us control any adjacent to the other superpowers, so neither of us would get extra points for that. So I would end up moving if I were to do Asia scoring right now, I would end up moving the victory points towards me 4 points and towards America for 3. So I would actually net 1. So the score would be 1 Soviet Union. So why did I do that with Asia and not Europe? Because if you have control in Europe and the Europe scoring is played, you automatically win the game. So remember, control is if you have controlling influence in all of the battleground states. Then the Europe cards played, you would have an automatic victory. So that's the third win condition. The first is your Soviet Union. Obviously, my Soviet Union is my superpower, and I favor it in this game, I guess. If your superpower gets to 20 points, you win. Game stops. If you get to the end of turn 10, you score all of the regions, and then whoever has the majority of victory points at that point wins. Or you score Europe when one of the players has control. Then the game automatically ends. The last way the game can end is through DEFCON. We'll talk about that when we get to it. Now, 2 things to note about the map. Well, lots of things, but 2 main things right now. You see how these countries have this diagonal slash going over them. That means that they're going to count in 2 different areas. So in this case, these countries all count towards Asia scoring as well as Southeast Asia scoring. And I'll talk more about Southeast Asia scoring in a minute. Now in Europe, you'll see similar diagonal lines in Finland and Austria. Now what that means is those 2 countries are equally affected by the Western European sphere of influence and the Eastern European sphere of influence. So for the purposes of cards, if it specifies Western Europe or Eastern Europe, those 2 countries count as both and either. The light purple is going to represent Eastern Europe and the dark purple is going to represent Western Europe. But you'll notice on the Europe scoring that the line goes like this. There's no scoring difference between the countries of the 2 spheres of influence. It is just for the purpose of splitting Europe ideologically into West and East. So, scoring cards. In early war, these first 3 rounds in this deck, there are only 3 scoring cards that can possibly come up. Asia, Middle East, and Europe. At this point, between turns 3 and 4, when we add in the mid-war cards, that's when we'll get Central America, South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia. So the first 3 turns, you don't need to worry, really. You don't need to worry about scoring in any of these places. You can start putting influence there. I don't care. That's whatever. But that's what that means. So let's take a little look at what we have card-wise. Let's look at the anatomy of a card. Let's start with this one. So a card will tell you at the top what war deck it's from. There will also be a star with a number in the upper left-hand corner. The color of the star in the corner denotes which superpower the event on the card is friendly towards. So any red star is going to be friendly towards the Soviets, any white star is going to be friendly towards the Americans, and any split star is neutral. It could be a benefit to either superpower. So let's take a look at my superpower, or my card, my influence card. There are 5 things that you can do with a card when you play a card. You can trigger the event. Cool. You can use the points. The points up here are called ops. It's the ops value of the card. There are 4 things you can do with the ops value of a card. You can place influence on the board. You can attempt a coup. You can realign, or you can space race. So there's 5 things you can do with the card. Now, those things don't apply to scoring card. The only thing you can do with a scoring card is play it. But I don't have an example of that right now. So, if this is my event, it's friendly to me, I can choose either to trigger the event or to use the ops value of the card. When that's done, it goes into the discard pile. And then when the draw pile is done, the discard pile will get shuffled and we get put back in. Now, like with this event, this is an American friendly event, which means I can play it for the ops value, but it will automatically trigger the event. And the same is true for the Americans. If they were to play one of my cards, they could use this for 2 ops value, but this event would trigger. Now, you do get to choose if the event is going to trigger before or after you've had an opportunity to use the ops value of the card. So you might be able to mitigate some damage of what's going to be done. So you can still use the opposition's cards for ops value. And if it's a neutral card, great. Use it for either, doesn't matter. Now, you might notice that some of these cards, have asterisks next to them. What that means, and it reminds you down here, is if the card is used for the event, if the event is triggered, that card is removed from the game. And what that does is when this is empty, we shuffle up the discard and put it in here, the removed cards don't get put back in again. So once this event is triggered, you can forget about this card. You don't care about it anymore. It's out of the game. Now, that'll happen if the Soviets use it for the event, because it's a Soviet-friendly thing, or if the Americans got this card and used it for the 1 point, it would trigger this. Now, there are cards that not only have an asterisk, like the Korean War and Vietnam Revolts, but also have a red underline, like De Gaulle leads France, or the U.S.-Japan Mutual Defense Pact. What these are is it's the same thing. Well, shuttle democracy isn't starred. Usually they'll have a star. But what the red line means is something about this event is going to affect the state of the game later or sooner rather than later, or at a specified time. So for example, this De Gaulle leads France, remove 2 American influence in France, add 1 Soviet influence, and it cancels the effects of NATO for France. This is the reason why it has a red underline, because once NATO is in effect, then, which stops the Soviets from being able to coup in Europe, this cancels NATO for France. So I can still do what I want in France as long as DEFCON's at 5. Okay, so same is true over here, the US-Japan Mutual Defense Pact. This changes the state because I may no longer make coup or realignment rolls in Japan. So that red line in the tabletop version, there are like little chits that specify what the effects are, and you just put it into play on the board. It's physically part of the game at that point. In this game, I'll show you when they pop up. It does have little icons to show, what rule breaking events are in effect. Okay, so there is one last type of card, and it's just this. It's not a type of card. There's only one of them. It's the China card. The China card is weird. When you play it, it doesn't go into the discard pile. It goes face down to the other superpower. And then at the next turn, it'll refresh, and they'll be able to use it if they want. If they do not use it, and they hold on to the end of turn 10, if that's what is involved at the end game, they'll get a victory point for having it. You'll see that it's a neutral card, but it does start the game with the Soviets. If you use all 4 of these influence points in Asia, then you would be able to actually spend 5 influence points in Asia. And we'll talk about that. Okay, so I have 8 cards, 8, plus the China card, right? And the Americans have 8 cards because they don't have the China card. And I'm going to have to play 7 cards this turn. So I'm going to look at these. And right now, we're still on influence. I got all the way up to the headline phase. Okay, so during the setup of the game, there is a set number of influence that you place in certain countries. So, for example, Australia is always going to start with 4. I'm always going to start with 3 in North Korea. Now, the way that the game can kind of vary a little bit is at the beginning, the Soviets are able to place 6 additional influence in the Eastern European sphere, and the Americans will be able to put 7 in the Western. I usually take Finland and Poland. All right, now let's see what America does with their 7. We took Italy and West Germany. Sure. All right, headline phase. Let's see. Now, the headline phase, both players play simultaneously, choose a card, and we reveal it, and that's the headline. Now, usually I'd be afraid of this card, this American event, because America can play it to cancel my headline event. And if I play it the America would get a victory point, but I'm not going to let that happen. Okay, let's take a look at these cards. So Vietnam revolts. We're going to add 2 Soviet influence in Vietnam. For the remainder of the turn, the Soviet player may add 1 operation point to any card that uses all points in Southeast Asia. I don't think I'm going to be doing that. The Arab-Israeli War. A pan-Arab coalition, invades Israel. Roll a die, subtract 1 for U.S. control of Israel and every U.S.-controlled country adjacent to Israel. So this could be interesting because nobody is friendly to America over here. Now, the benefit of it is I would replace all U.S. influence with my own. So I would get 1 influence there. I would also get 2 victory points if I won. And 2 military ops. That's a possibility. All right, de Gaulle leads France. Oh, we talked about this one. There's no 2 to take out of France, so we're not worried about that. Nasser, add 2 USSR influence and remove. But America doesn't have any in Egypt yet, so I'm not that worried about that. All further operation cards played by your opponent are -1. No. In the Korean War, North Korea invades South Korea. America doesn't have control of anything. So it's the same thing as Arab-Israeli. Either way, if I headline either of those war cards, I'm going to get 2 military operation points. And potentially 1 influence in one of these, or one of these. I don't really have a lot of choice. I'm not gonna headline that either. I'm gonna use it for points. I want to shave it. So this one is U.S. gains sufficient influence in Japan for control. So they would get 3 more influence here, so they'd have 4. And then I wouldn't be able to make coup or realignment rolls in Japan. I'd rather have them have to pay to get in Japan rather than me give it to them. So I'm not going to do that. Now my problem, as I see it a little bit, is I don't have any of the scoring cards. And it's either going to be Europe, Middle East, or Asia. There are 19 cards in there. They could still be in there. All 3 of them could still be in the draw pile. Maybe neither one of us has a scoring card. But I kind of want to get a feel for where this person is going to try to do some influence. So let's go ahead. Oh, because if I can do this and first turn coup them out of Iran, they wouldn't be in any of these places. Ooh, let's see if we can get that to work. Okay. Oh, we're just wars all over. So you'll see here, since we reveal them simultaneously, just in the headline phase, they'll resolve in descending order. If there's a tie, like there is here, the American players will happen first. So, well, all right. So the Indo-Pakistani War, you choose one or the other. Neither of us have any control in Pakistan. So on a 4 through 6, they would get to replace all the influence, but there was none. And they get 2 victory points. Golly. So they get 2 victory points and 2 military operations. We'll talk about those in a minute. I also succeeded in my war, but I also got to replace their 1 with mine. And I got 2 points. So after America got 2 points, you see that the score has gone to this blue, and it says 0-2. The tug of war of points is on the American side right now. But now I will add 2 of my own to that, which evens it out again. Okay, so what I want to do is coup in Iran. So let's talk a little bit about influence, what we can do with these points. I'm going to use this 4-op card to coup Iran. So what you do when you coup is you're going to choose a country. I want to coup Iran. Now, you're going to take double the stability number, and that is the coup defense number. You need to beat the coup defense. If you beat the coup defense, any extra value that you have, you can use to take influence out of the country. So you're going to be adding your operation points to a die roll, to the pips on a die roll. So for example, if I rolled a 1, I would have a total of 5. Double this plus this is 5, knocks them out, right? Because I have that 1 extra over the value. These cancel each other out. I don't know if that makes sense. Well, there'll be more than 1 coup. If I were to roll a 2, I would be able to remove 1 of theirs and add 1 of mine. I roll a 3, remove 1 of theirs, add 2 of mine. And you can see here, it tells you what the results will be, how good your odds are, right? You can make a decision. So let's see. I succeeded. So I rolled a 3, which means I got to take 1 off and add my 2. And I got 4 military operation points. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's go ahead and talk about DEFCON. You'll notice that Iran is a battleground country. Anytime you attempt a coup in a battleground country, it's going to lower DEFCON status by 1 phase, 1 step. At DEFCON 5, there's no restrictions. Once you get to DEFCON 4, it's affecting whether or not you can do coup or realignment attempts. So for example, at DEFCON 4, we can't do coups in Europe. At DEFCON 3, we can't do coups in Europe or Asia. At DEFCON 2, you can't do coups in Europe, Asia, or the Middle East. And if you do another battleground coup when you're at DEFCON 2, you've triggered nuclear war, which means the other team wins. So that's our final win condition. The other team has triggered a nuclear war. Yes. So if it's a battleground country, it will lower the DEFCON status. Now, the track under that, this required military operations, each country must conduct a number of military operations equal to or greater than the DEFCON status at the end of the turn. So, right now, if the turn were to end right now, excuse me, my military operations, 5, exceed the current DEFCON status, which is 4, so I would not receive a penalty. But America's required military operations is 2, and DEFCON's at 4, so they are 2 short, TWO short, so they would lose 2 points. 1 for each operation point they are below the DEFCON status. And I do that all the time. I always forget about required military operations. How do you get required military operations? Well, you saw with 1, when you play a war card, it'll usually have an amount of military operations. Another way is by coupping. When you coup a country, you get military operations points equal to the ops value of the card that you played for influence points. So last turn we played a level 4 card, a 4 ops card. So we received 4 military operation points from that. If I tried to coup with Nasser, I would get 1 military operation point. Okay, let's see what America does. So they too are going to, well, they're going to place influence with this 4 value card. So let's see whether they went. They went over here. So we've seen two uses then for the operation value on the card. We saw that you can use that number to coup a country, and America is showing us right now using points to place influence. So, one in North Korea. Okay, so they had started with 1 in South Korea and none in North Korea. I had control in North Korea. So they added 2 to South Korea, which brought them up to 3, gives them controlling influence. And they had 2 influence points left. If the other superpower has controlling influence in the country, you need to spend 2 influence for each 1 influence you place on the country. So since I had controlling influence here, in order to put this one down, they had to pay 2 influence points, but they only get 1 on the board because they have to work twice as hard to overcome the controlling influence that I have in the country. This makes me a little bit nervous that they've done this. You see, this bar gives you an idea of to whom and how severely scoring would go to one side or the other. Since it's blue, it's going to go in the favor of America. They would get 8 points, and I would score 0 because I don't even have presence in Asia anymore. Whereas in the Middle East, the opposite is true. I would score 4 because they don't have anything over here. So let's go ahead. I too will use points. Oh, I wish they had done this. I will use these 3 points to place influence. I'll place 1 in North Korea, and I still have 2 more. So I'm going to take Afghanistan. Now the reason I took Afghanistan and not Pakistan is, remember, in order to be considered for dominance in a country, you need to have more countries than the other, more total countries, more battleground countries than the other. But you also need to have at least 1 non-battleground country. You need to have at least 1 of each kind in order to qualify. So now that I have Afghanistan, I get presence, but since I too have 2 countries, just like they do, and they don't have more battleground countries, it's a wash. So that's fine. And I chose the non-battleground country because you need to have, you can't just have battleground countries. That's crazy talk. So I'll take Pakistan next time. Yes. There's not much of a threat of America coming over there anyway, because they can't coup, or they can still coup in Asia. But they already used the Indo-Pakistani War. So let's see what they do. Hey, interesting. It's a good time to play that card. Okay, so this lets me remove a total of 4 influence from France, the United Kingdom, and Israel. Now this is what makes it a little bit interesting in this situation. I can remove no more than 2 influence per country. Now, if you'll recall, I already got them out of Israel, so I can't get any there. And they're not in France, so I can't get any there, which means I can only remove 2 influence from the UK. Because it specifies those 3 countries, France, the UK, and Israel. Usually that's a better card for me. And since that's an asterisk card, it won't come up again. So this was a really good time for America to get rid of that card. Plus, they now have these 3 operation points to do with what they please. They're going to place influence in Asia. I wonder if they have the Asia scoring card. So, they had 3 points. Did they go to Angola too? Okay. They have 3 points, and they spent 2 to get back in here because I had controlling influence. And then they spent 1 down here in Angola. Now, I'm not that concerned about Africa, South America, or Central America because those scoring cards aren't in the deck yet. I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about this right now. Okay. So, I still don't want to play that. Let's do... This is a good time to do the Korean War. Okay. So, what does this do? North Korea invades South Korea. Roll 1 die, subtract 1 for every U.S. controlled country adjacent to South Korea, which is none. I would get a victory on 4 through 6. I would get 2 more military, and I could get 2 victory points and replace all U.S. influence in South Korea. Yes, play the event. I got a 6. So it means I succeeded. All 3 of those go away, and they're added with 3 of mine, or they're replaced with 3 of mine, and I get 2 points. Da-dee-da-dee-dee. So now it's America's turn. So they're going to play 2 points of influence to take the Philippines and Colombia. Okay, well, they've given up over here. Don't really want Vietnam just yet, so I'm going to play this for points. I'm going to take North Korea back. I have 1 more point. I will take Syria, because that gives me control of a battleground and a non-battleground. Let's see. I am tempted to space race this next turn. Oh, the Olympics. So they took Indonesia and put another one in Japan. I'm going to space race this turn. So, space racing. Let's talk about space racing. Space racing is a track, an additional track that you can put cards to during your turn. It's another use for the ops value. Once per turn, you can take a card and play it towards the space race. If you do that and it is one of your opponent's cards, like this one, the event doesn't trigger. It's safe in the space race. So, let's talk about what this means. The first superpower to successfully launch a satellite off of Earth. So, the first superpower to play a 2 ops value card and roll a 1 through a 3 will get 2 points. The second person to launch a satellite will get 1 point. And that's how all of these work. 2, 3, and 1, 4 and 2, 2 and nothing. This is a special ability. Like, once I launch Laika into space, then I can play 2 space race cards per turn instead of just 1. But once the Americans launch, was it a monkey? I feel like it's a monkey. Then they too have gotten to the space. Neither of us gets that benefit. So you get that benefit as long as you're the only person who's done this. So as long as you're the only one who's had a man in Earth orbit, as long as you're the only one who has landed, right? As long as you're the only one who has built a space station. And that's how you unlock your 8th action round. So we are going to, whoa. We are going to space race this. And you'll notice this little icon here means that if you were to do one of those things, it would trigger the event for the other country, but there's not one next to space race because safe in space. All right, let's give it a try. Yay! We successfully launched a satellite into orbit. We got rid of a 2 op card. We rolled between a 1 and a 3. We rolled a 1, so we get 2 victory points, and we are right there. Wonderful. Let's see what they do. Because we only have 1 more card to play, and they have 2 more cards to play. Let's see what they do. What are they going to do? Okay. Not yet. So they're playing this 1 op value card, which is going to trigger my event. Remove all U.S. influence in Romania. Soviets gain sufficient influence in Romania for control. And now they are coupping in Iran. So they had a 1 value operation, and Iran's coup defense was 4. They needed to beat 4, which they did. They had a total of 5. So they were able to remove 1 of my influence from Iran. And that lowers DEFCON. So I do not like that because I want those points. Asia, I'd be getting points right now, so alright, we'll just play this for the influence and take Iran back. Excuse me. Alright, let's see what they do. Asia scoring. So, we both have presence. Neither of us have domination. Only one person can have domination. That's the point of domination. We both have 3 countries, which means I don't have more countries. I have more battleground countries, 2-0, but I don't have more total countries. So I don't get domination. And I have 2 battlegrounds, and she has none. So I would score 5. She would score 3. That means I net 2. So my score will be at 6. Now, what did we end the turn on? This is the DEFCON level. We end the turn on DEFCON 3. We compare our military ops value. So America scored or spent 3. I spent 5. So neither of us are going to lose victory points due to that. And then we will draw back up to our hand size. And we will raise DEFCON 1 level at the beginning of the next turn. So here's our turn 2. It's reminding us we're going to have 6 action rounds. DEFCON goes up to 4. Oh God. And here are our cards. Oh dear. Okay. So what we're looking at here is it's not as bad as it could be. No, it's not. Okay. So you'll see that we have quite a few American favored cards. The Marshall Plan allows them to put 1 influence in each of 7 non-Soviet controlled Western European countries, which is all of them. I don't have any influence in any Western country right now. Forgot that I had done that though. And then it allows the play of NATO. That's why it's red underlined. NATO means that I can't do coup or realignment rolls in any controlled countries in Europe, any US controlled countries. And U.S. controlled countries in Europe may not be attacked by play of the Brush War event, which is a mid-war event. Now, you'll see that these 2 X's show that neither of those conditions have been met for NATO to be able to be played, either the Marshall Plan being played or the Warsaw Pact. Since neither of those have been played, the event on NATO can't trigger, which means I can use it as points at no problem, which is good. I doubt they'll headline the Warsaw Pact unless they really want NATO to trigger. 5-year plan, I hate. The Soviet player discards a card. If it's a US associated event, it occurs immediately. If it's a Soviet event or applicable to both, the card must be discarded without triggering the event. Because my American cards are so valuable, I don't want that to happen. I want to be able to use them as points. We have the Middle East scoring card, which is good for us right now. We would get 6 points. Okay. Socialist governments removes U.S. influence in Western Europe by a total of 3 influence points, removing no more than 2 per country. That could be fun. And UN intervention, which actually is a really great card, lets me play this card in addition to one of America's cards, and then the event is canceled. So the UN is like, shh, it's okay. So we are right now in turn 2, and we're in the headline phase. So both of us have to choose what we're going to do for our headline. Well, they've already chosen. Now, let's explain some of these. This means that due to DEFCON, you can't coup or realign here. This means that the scoring card has already been played and is in the discard pile. So you don't have to worry about it until reshuffle, which will happen next turn. So, what do I want to Headline. See, I would headline this, but I don't know what they're going to play, if it's going to be something that benefits them in the Middle East. So I'm going to play this as the event, which is going to let me remove 2 of their influence in Western Europe. That's going to be nice. No, no. Okay, so they created the CIA, which means that they've looked at my cards, and then they can conduct operations as if they played a 1-op card. So they know that I have all of this. They know I have Middle East scoring, which is probably the worst part about all this. Because I don't want them to like coup and you know what? I do want them to coup in Iran. That'd be great. Okay, so I'm going first because my op value is higher than the CIA's. So I'm going to remove 1 influence here. I'm never going to go there. We'll do 2 there. Alright, so then they look at my cards and they're going to make a decision. Stupid CIA. I'm thinking. Ha! So they tried to coup in Iran. The coup defense is 4, right? Twice 2. If you add their operation plus their die roll, that's 4. So they didn't, nothing is taken away from me. So we will go ahead and, you know what? We're going to play NATO for points. The reason I'm not doing Middle East scoring yet is because I don't want, oh, you know what? That doesn't matter. I'd be okay if they played the Warsaw Pact. I want to get this done. Because it's going to get me 6 points. I have domination. I have more total countries and more battleground because they have none. So I would get 6 points and they get none. That's what I want. All right, let's see what they're going to do. Because Europe's looking pretty nice too. I kind of wanted to use influence to get up in here, but it's okay. I'm not too upset about it. All right, they're going to coup Syria, and again they failed. The stability number twice is 4, and their total was 4. 2 on the pips, 2 on the card. So they do not get to take anything away. That is the second failed coup. So we're at DEFCON 3, which means I can't coup or realign in Asia or Europe. They don't have anyone in the Middle East, so that's silly. So what I want to do, what is ducking cover? To grade DEFCON 1 level, then the American player earns VPs equal to 5. Oh no. Nope. Okay, let's go ahead and do NATO, because this can't trigger, so I just get the 4 points. Oh, is that what I want to do? Okay, I'm gonna coup Panama. Yeah. So I'm gonna coup Panama. No, I know Europe scoring's coming up. Okay, let's not be ridiculous. Let's just place influence here, here. Okay. The only way, like I said, the only way for them to get in, they're gonna have to do a coup to get into the Middle East. But they're at a real deficit of time here. Okay. So, I get to add 1 USSR influence in each of 4 non-US controlled countries in Eastern Europe. US doesn't control anything over here. So I'm just going to add 1 to each of these. And then they get 3 points. The reason I didn't add any over here is because that independent Reds card, they'd be able to take it away. I don't like putting influence where things like where the other player could take it away from me. Like it just seems silly. Okay. Where are they in Japan? They're still only at 2 in Japan. I don't want to play that yet. Oh, this number. I think I'm going to UN intervene this one. Because, I mean, really... Oh, it doesn't matter. Alright, let's see. UN intervene. The Marshall Plan. And let's do... Oh, it's just me being a jerk. I really feel... I mean, Europe scoring is coming up. Either they have it or it's one of these 5 cards in the draw pile. See, I don't understand why they didn't play that earlier. So the Warsaw Pact is like the Marshall Plan, but weaker for the Soviets. Remove all U.S. influence from 4 countries in Eastern Europe, or add 5 USSR influence in Eastern Europe, adding no more than 2 per country, which is what I'm going to do because there's no U.S. controlled countries over here. So I can place 2 there, and then we'll just do like that. So this is saying, the reason this little sticker is out here now is to say that now NATO can be played as an event. So it's good that I got it out there. I got NATO out there when I did, because if the Warsaw Pact happened before it, it would have allowed for that event to trigger. I don't know, just the... I'm not sure why the AI didn't do it. Okay, so what they did is they had 3 points. They added 1 to France, and they spent 2 to put 1 point in Western Germany, which is fine. Okay, so this is just going to mean that the US is going to get 2 points in Japan, and that I can't make coup or realignment rolls in Japan. It's fine. And then I'm going to use this to take that. I have 2 more influence. Do that in France. Okay. I don't know why I get so excited when I get West Germany. It seems so wrong. So I like to do it. Realignment in Syria. So the way realignment works is both sides will roll a die with modifiers based on who controls adjacent countries in the country in question. So, for example, I control Syria. I have a controlling influence in Syria, so I would get a +1 to my die roll. America doesn't get any. What they're trying to do is knock influence off of here without it being a coup. When you do a realignment, you get however many rolls as you have points. So they'll get 1 roll here. If this had been a 2, they'd get 2 rolls. So the difference ended up here. The controlling country got the majority, which means that influence would have changed over to them, but there's no influence to change. They can't produce influence out of thin air. So nothing changed. If they had rolled a 4 and I got this, then I would have lost 1. Because that would be the difference. Okay. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? So try to realign and see. They're trying to get down there, and I'm not going to let it. All right, let's space race the 5-year plan. Nope. Success! That means I can play 2 space race cards per turn. I know what's going to happen with this one. It's going to get space raced. Because I could get points from that. Alright, let's see what they're doing. Weird. So they tried the realignment in Syria again. They failed again. I don't really know what they're doing. And they used Captured Nazi Scientist, which is one of my favorite cards. Where is he? It lets you move up the space race without rolling a dice. That's great. I can't believe they did that. But it's going to be in the draw pile. So maybe I'll get it next time. Alright, I'm going to space race this because I can. Success! I sent a man into space! So I get 2 points. Cool. Alright, what's their last thing going to be? Europe scoring is either happening now or definitely next time. There it is. Alright. Whoa. Huh. That was dumb. Why would they have used those to try to realign? I don't know. So I have domination. I have more total countries, 6-1. So I have 7 points. They get 3. They have 1 battleground. I have 3 battlegrounds. So I would score 10. They would score 4, which would net me 6, which would put me at 20. That's it. I don't like that though. I don't like that the AI, they spent those last 2 turns trying to realign Syria instead of, I mean, how many points were their cards worth? 1. There wasn't much they could do then. Because they wouldn't have been able to take France because they, with their 1 points, so both their cards were 1 point, they couldn't place more influence here. Much rough on them. I mean, it's not so bad for us. We won in turn 2. It wasn't even turn 3 yet. That was a very fast game. Things we didn't get to because I already won. Southeast Asia is a scoring card that'll come out in mid-war, but it's got an asterisk. So as soon as it's used, it's removed from the game. It only happens once. Yeah, I'll probably do another one of these where I play as America to get the game to go a little bit longer. That was astonishingly short. But I won't go through all the rules explanation like I did in the when I play as America. It'll just be a refresher. And like I said, hopefully the game will go on long. I mean, that's the goal when you're playing as the Soviets, to have a quick game, to finish it early. I must have had way better cards than they did. I mean, even though those are their events, those are still pretty, those are a lot of points. Those are a lot of points. Those aren't so bad. I mean, well, okay, so that was the first part. We'll do the second part when I play as America, and like I said, try to get a little bit further in the game. But those are the basics. I hope that you enjoyed it.